Better.
I am ready for some more draft talk. If you caught the last episode of the Draft Deeper podcast, we actually went into some NBA bubble discussion with the good Brett Usher from Pod Strickland, which actually that's the action we have going on right now. We have Bucks Magic at the moment, which I'm not surprised, Kevin. This is not a close game.
Yeah, I mean, it was never going to be a close game after they got not killed, obviously, but once they got beat in Game 1, Milwaukee was never going to lose this game. There was never a shot.
Expectations certainly were on the table for Milwaukee to come out and prove themselves and blow the doors off of Orlando, which is what happened here. No surprises. All right, so getting ready for the lottery should be starting right after the game here. We have an interesting group of teams led at the top by an organization you wouldn't normally expect to be in this position, but the Golden State Warriors have one of the best chances to win the top pick in the lottery, along with the Cavaliers and the Timberwolves. I mean, Kevin, did you ever think that they'd be number one in the lottery after just having championship runs with Steph, Clay, Durant, and company?
I mean, anything can happen when injuries happen, right? I mean, second Clay went down in the playoff, and then Steph just was never himself this year. And Draymond's not good enough to lead a team by any account. Unfortunately, neither was D'Lo, Mr. Ice in my veins.
When injuries happen, anything can happen. That's exactly right. So, I mean, following them, we have the Atlanta Hawks, we have the Detroit Pistons, the beloved New York Knicks by many, the Chicago Bulls, Charlotte Hornets, Washington Wizards, the Phoenix Suns, who we just saw light up the bubble. Good news is that their draft stock actually wasn't affected by everything that happened in the bubble because those 8 games aren't counting for the stock. So not only do they get to build off of their success they had in that 8-game run, but now they get to potentially add a top 10 pick to their rotation should everything break well for them here. Or they could even move up to the top 4, given the lottery odds system. Who knows? But right after them, we have San Antonio. We got Sacramento. Kevin, your beloved New Orleans Pelicans.
No. You're doing me wrong. I love Lonzo Ball. I don't love the team. I only love Lonzo Ball.
No, you don't get to do that.
I 100% do.
Root for the Pelicans.
I don't
watch the Pelicans every time we watch basketball.
I watch Lonzo Ball. If he even steps on the court, I compliment him. He could do the most mundane thing, and I'll still compliment Lonzo Ball.
And then we have the Memphis Grizzlies pick, owned by the Boston Celtics, who it conveys to Boston unless it's in the top 6. It is top 6 protected. So those are our 14 teams. I'm really curious to see what happens at the top, as I'm sure a lot of people are. Because if Golden State keeps that pick, there are a lot of different ways they can go with that pick.
I don't think they go LaMelo, right? Because I feel like he wouldn't fit with that team. I don't think they want the distraction.
So here's the thing, and for some people who might not have listened to the very first edition of the podcast where I went over my top 5 on the big board, some of you are actually lucky. You guys are going to get to hear a sneak preview of guys that are later down my board. I haven't revealed that yet on the podcast. 6 through 10 coming this upcoming Monday night. When I record that, we'll be out next Wednesday as usual. Either of the guards I have at the top, you just mentioned LaMelo, or my number 1 overall player on my board, Cole Anthony, could actually fit well in Golden State if they're willing to sit behind the veterans, come off the bench, learn from not only those veterans, but also head coach Steve Kerr, who is incredible at developing talent and coaching in his own right. I think it could be a great situation for either one of them. Now, our good friend in the media, LeVar Ball, might not necessarily want LaMelo to be coming off the bench. He might want a star role for him. But I personally think it'd be great for LaMelo's development, and he quite frankly would be a perfect fit in Golden State's offense. If you're doing a small ball lineup with him, Curry, and Clay, the ball movement and the execution that could come from those lineups offensively could be off the charts. So I don't know, Kevin. I think that might actually be a decent fit should he allow himself to be
I'm not worried about like the player itself. I'm worried about the situation.
I don't disagree with that. It could be a terrible situation from a PR perspective if, the family wouldn't want to be patient and have LaMelo play behind those two guards, at least to start the season. Now, I don't see that as being an issue from LaMelo's standpoint. Everything I've heard from him, he's come a long way maturity-wise. You can tell in his interviews in how he learned to carry himself on the court playing in Australia for the Illawarra Hawks. I think he's come a long way in terms of what he's going to be able to bring from a professional and maturity standpoint. I don't think that would be an issue for him, but you're right. There are other factors in play that we can't necessarily control.
And like I said, I have no issue with LaMelo the person, but regardless of how mature he is and regardless of how much he's grown up, there's still always a looming thing. And for a championship team like Golden State, that may not attract them.
No, I agree.
What may attract them is if somebody wants to make a blockbuster trade for the number one pick, and they can get a win now kind of guy.
That's another hot topic. I personally hate projecting trades because unless you have some real insider information, it's really tough to get a feel on who is really going to be interested in the number one pick, especially given the landscape this year that there really isn't a top player viewed by many scouts on boards. I mean, you could talk to 15 different scouts around the league and get 10 to 12 different answers on who they think the number one player is overall on a big board. So with that much uncertainty, I don't know who's going to be trading the pick. I know Golden State would love to flip that, possibly another player to some other compensation for another star to kind of get that fourth star so that they can go back on one of those magical runs like they have with Durant. But A, I don't think that player is going to be available. B, the uncertainty around who's actually going to be drafted with that pick. And C, there's a lot of other things that we could get into financially with where the cap's going to have to go, but I don't feel that this is the time to do that because we just don't know enough financially with where the NBA is going yet. But there are so many implications on why Golden State may just keep the pick. And, I mean, whether they went the direction of one of those two guards, whether they went with Anthony Edwards, who might be a better fit on the wing next to Steph and Clay, they could go with a big. They are going to need a big, whether that's James Wiseman coming out of Memphis, who I actually have very high on my board, or Onyeka Okongwu, who, spoiler alert, again, for anybody who's going to be listening to the show next week, I have him number 6 on my board. A lot of people have compared him to a new Bam Adebayo. And while I don't think that comparison is too far off the mark, I don't want to necessarily go there yet. I think Bam is a much better playmaker than we give him credit for. And I don't see that level of passing ability at all at this stage from Okongwu. So I'm going to hang off on making that comparison firmly. But Golden State has options here at the top of the draft. I think that's what everybody's interested in. They want to see where Golden State falls. And then the rest is just icing on the cake. Unless somebody jumps up into the top 4 that we don't expect, which, I mean, New Orleans didn't necessarily have business getting the number 1 pick last year. So that could absolutely happen.
You're not wrong. Not to cut you off, but Orlando is starting to make this a game a little bit. They're starting to catch up. It's still like an 11-point game, but it was like a 17, 18-point game last time I checked. So,
I mean, we'll see how they're able to close it out or not close it out. I have enjoyed watching Orlando in these 2 games. I'm not going to lie. The Fultz-Vucevic 2-man game is something to behold. And I love the fact that we have evaluators saying that he's the perfect modern era 5. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. He's come such a long way with his jump shot. He's an underrated passer out of double teams. He doesn't sit there and hold the ball in the post and dribble until he can back somebody down and eventually turn over a shoulder. He's a pretty quick decision maker as a big, versatile offensive threat. He's one heck of a rebounder. He cleans the glass on both ends. And he's a perfect partner for Fultz. He's the perfect guy to bail him out because he can kind of just sag off the defense and pop out, and he's there with a money jumper. So I really like that combination a lot, and Vucevic has given Milwaukee a lot of matchup problems. I mean, having to force Brook Lopez out of the paint, where that is where he's effective on defense. He wasn't the best shot blocker or rim protector early on in his career, especially with Brooklyn, with New Jersey and Brooklyn, but he's come a long way in Milwaukee, and he is a reliable rim protecting presence. So if you're stretching him out, bringing him away from the basket, that helps open up other driving lanes and other scoring opportunities for Orlando. But the guy with the ball right now that we just saw, Fournier, he really needs to keep it going and get it going in this playoff series.
Would they have a chance, do you think, if they didn't have all the injuries right now? Like, they're down like half their team, right? I think down like Isaac and Gordon.
So Isaac is out due to injury. Gordon is getting through an injury. So those are definitely a few things that hurt the Orlando Magic, but it opens up opportunities for other guys. I mean, we have James Ennis getting good minutes. If Fournier can step up, I mean, he's been a starter all year. He's got to hit shots. Terrence Ross
T-Roth
is getting great opportunities in the starting lineup. So the Orlando Magic aren't completely depleted of talent, which you saw that's a big reason why they were able to win game one. They got monster contributions from Vucevic, but I mean, they also had other guys contributing in other areas.
How you doing, Reef? Welcome to the live stream.
Kevin, your boy Fungus is giving you some love there. I don't know. You
might
have to tell him back.
Oh, don't worry. I did on my own account. I told him I agree with him.
Anybody watching, I mean, if you guys have questions about the draft, questions about specific prospects, feel free to hit us in the chat.
Or even about any NBA thing.
Yeah.
I have the good takes. Nate had the bad takes.
No, you have the hot takes that wake everybody
take
up at the end of my podcast in case they were dozing off if they're listening to that pod right before bed to put them to sleep.
Hey, mine was right though. I'm looking smart as...
It's only 2 games, Kevin. It's only 2 games.
Yeah, but even if they go to like 6 games, right? Even if you go 6 games, I'm still gonna look like, oh, I saw something, because if they lose in 6 games, it should have still been 3-3 and they should have went to game 7. But gosh forbid the NBA not have the Clippers in the finals.
Listen, we know where the Clippers are going. I don't think it's a done deal that they're going to be in the finals.
They're going home. That's
all this talk about Portland's going to upset the Lakers. I think everybody needs to slow down. That was 1 game too.
Yeah.
And I love Damian Lillard. If anybody out there was listening to the second episode of the podcast that we just ran this week, when I was talking with Brett, we gushed over the Trailblazers and Damian Lillard to the point where Kevin didn't think we were going to have time to talk about anything else. So you know how much I love the Blazers, but slow down. The Lakers still have LeBron and Anthony Davis.
What I will say is it's a little different. So we had both number 1 seeds lose, right? Milwaukee's playing an Orlando team, which is not really that good. Wherein the Portland team is actually a good team. They were plagued by injuries, and they made the playoffs because they're a good team. So, I mean, I still think the Lakers are going to win in 6. But, like, it's definitely a little more concerning for the Lakers losing game 1 than the Bucks losing game 1.
And I think it's going to be a longer series than even I originally thought, but I'm not worried. What I will say is Houston, who we didn't get to talk about on the podcast show this week against Oklahoma City. Hopefully I'll be able to touch on that series before we get started with the big board this upcoming week. We ran out of time. We couldn't get to them. But man, has that been a fascinating series. And probably the biggest thing that I've seen from the Rockets that's standing out to me is obviously James Harden's carrying everybody on offense. But when you see a superstar talent like him, known primarily for his offense, known around the league by many to only care about offense, not necessarily care about defense, running back to guard and cover the other team's hottest offensive player. So going out, getting a bucket, running back, and trying to specifically get a stop on the other team's best guy, I have not seen that from Harden. And I'm seeing that in this series, and I love it.
I've actually been very impressed because I'm like one of the first people to criticize James Harden because I think he only plays one way. But he's actually shown that he cares a little bit this series, which maybe it's because he hasn't been able to go to the strip club every single night.
Yeah, he has not been allowed to go see his jersey hanging in the rafters anytime soon.
That's still one of the most legendary things out there.
It's legendary. I'm a little upset that we actually had the story come out about Lou Williams rather than James Harden. I think that would have been
With
nice
my boy,
James.
what's poppin'?
But how has he been affectionately called? Lemon Pepper Lou. I think Colin Cowherd has even called him Lap Dance Lou live on FS1.
He was just getting some wings
at that on national television, but it gives me a laugh. And by the way, shout out to Lou Williams. He's still doing his thing with the Clippers. He's one of the best bench scorers in the league.
I mean, he's sixth man of it all time.
If that man wants to go have some hot wings,
lemon pepper wings.
Lemon pepper wings. Should have he gone inside the strip club? Probably not. He probably should have had somebody cater deliver to him. Or just meet somebody outside.
Well, yeah, that he was going there to meet somebody, that's for sure.
But and I know this isn't supposed to be a hot take kind of thing, but let's not crucify this man for getting some wings. I think everybody's got to calm down a little bit on that.
I think he got a little more than wings, but I'll cool.
He did get just a tad more than wings, and that was a confirmed report.
I think he got the full meal. I hear
your boy Jack Harlow, because I know you love that What's Poppin' remix.
Yeah, all his music is dope.
He's been famous for a second.
No.
And he had to post a picture with Lou.
He's been unironically, he's been popping for a minute in the underground, like in the low key rap scene. His shit's been popping.
That's not how you treat a superstar.
Okay, let's calm down.
He is a bench superstar. He's a bench superstar.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah,
there's nobody better scoring off the bench than Lou Will.
I can tell you one. His name is Nicholas Young.
I'm a little afraid to hear this.
Nicholas Young.
All right, we're gonna graze over that topic, and we're gonna get
what? Nick Young. Can I get a Nick Young emote in the chat, please?
We're gonna graze over Nick Young. We're not gonna do this right now.
That's my boy.
So Kevin, who are you interested to see where they fall in the lottery?
I just want to see where the Knicks fall because I think it's kind of time for them to be relevant again. As much as I don't really like the Knicks as a Heat fan, I still want them to be relevant because the NBA is a lot more fun when they're relevant, right?
Well, you would love your boy LaMelo Ball to go to the Knicks.
No, because I don't want to root for the Knicks.
And by the way, he's going to become your boy.
Oh yeah, I've no doubt he will
overtake Lonzo in your heart.
I want the Knicks to be better than they are, but I don't want to be able to root for them. I'd rather have somebody like Cole Anthony go to them because I have no vested interest in rooting for him, whereas I had vested interest in rooting for Ball.
God, if Cole Anthony goes to the Knicks, that would be amazing. Him and Barrett sharing backcourt responsibilities.
How long do you think RJ Barrett lasts in New York before he gets traded?
That entirely depends on what kind of offer might be out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that Knicks front office has a lot in front of them, and they actually believe that they can go out and get a star via trade.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were hoping that Devin Booker would hate his time in Phoenix and would want to ask out.
It sounds like he really enjoyed his time in Phoenix.
Kevin, we're not gonna mention that story on the stream here. We're gonna leave that one to be found.
No, I was just talking about the 8-0 in the bubble.
Media.
No, I was talking about the 8-0 in the bubble. What were you talking about?
Yeah, I know your innuendos all too well, Kevin. I know where you're going with things. I've known you for far too long.
Looks like the game is finally over. It looks like we're finally going to be getting into the lottery.
Which is the moment that we're waiting for here on this stream. Anybody watching, thank you so much for coming out to the first Draft Deeper live stream here. We're covering the lottery, where we're trying to talk about some of the top pick options here. Although we're getting distracted with Lemon Pepper Lou and Nick Young and Lonzo Ball, but
I mean,
this is
I'm
what
on
you
the,
can expect on a stream. It's all business on the podcast,
but when
but
you
on the
involve me,
stream,
Mike Yak, it's on ESPN.
ESPN.
Yeah, Nate, you can't have me on anything and expect it to be completely serious. I'm too much
On
of
a
a good
stream,
time.
no. On a stream, I'm absolutely down to have a little more fun. It's all about building the brand, right? Isn't that what
Yeah.
the young kids say nowadays?
Got to build the culture.
Got to build the culture. That's right.
Hey, Bulls getting number one would be nice too, to be honest with you. Because Bulls kind of
I
been
would
slacking.
absolutely love to see the Bulls get a top pick because it might mean that they could find a better backcourt partner to start with Zach LaVine, or maybe they flip Zach LaVine for something interesting. They keep Kobe White in the starting lineup and they put another guard next to Kobe, and that's kind of the backcourt of the future. And maybe they build out that wing spot by finding a deal for Zach LaVine. I've heard a lot of speculation online that the Hawks might love to have him if they can't get Anthony Edwards to put next to Trae Young, which, God, that is a no defense team if that happens one way or the other. But, I mean, maybe that's how they want to play it.
Listen, as long as Golden State doesn't get it, I'll be happy.
I know we were just talking about the Knicks. Shout out to Leon Rose, Temple graduate. T for Temple U, that's where I'm from. That's where I got my journalism degree. So, this is serious business coming out of Philly.
We haven't talked about this yet, Nate, but how interesting would it be if Minnesota got it, and they could have put like a big three together of like Cat, D'Lo, and like Anthony Edwards or Cole Anthony or whoever they ended up picking. That'd be an interesting combination.
I don't know if LaMelo Ball could survive in Minnesota if he went there.
Nah, it's too it's too
him and
cold up
D'Lo
there.
in the same backcourt. I don't know. I don't know about that one. If you want to
it'd
talk
be a
about
show.
no defense lineups, those two plus Towns. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean they'd be scoring a lot of points.
Let's see what Woj has to say. Shout out to Woj. Shout out to Woj being back from suspension for saying something he probably shouldn't have.
Wait, I actually didn't hear about that. Can we talk about that on stream or no? I actually don't know what he did.
So he made a comment in an email
Okay.
with a 4-letter expletive
Okay.
that I don't know if I necessarily want to say on the stream or not. But he got in some big trouble talking back to a politician. So he was actually suspended for a few weeks leading into the bubble games. So
he dropped a Woj bomb on the email. Heard.
That was a big Woj bomb. That was a little more than just a Woj bomb.
If you would have told me, to Cheeseburger, if you would have told me that like previous to the bubble, I would have completely agreed with you. But I think the Suns are like, I think they finally see like a light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that will make him want to stay for at least one more year. Do you agree, Nate?
I do agree. His last comment though is interesting about trading for D-Book.
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
They would love to do that. So I
just
agree
don't
that
think
that
they
could be
will.
an avenue they would explore, but Phoenix isn't getting rid of D-Book.
Yeah.
Not after what just happened in the bubble. Spike Eskin on Twitter, our friends at the Rights to Ricky Sanchez. I'm almost certain the Wizards will get the number 1 pick. Sure, Spike. That's probably not where you want the number 1 pick to go in terms of interesting plot lines. But we are about serious analysis here on Draft Deeper, damn it. We are serious analysis.
Yep. That's my middle name. Looks like they're doing an interview with Curry right now. Man, he's looking like he's enjoying life, not being in the bubble.
Steph Curry?
Yeah, he's living.
I mean, why would he want to be in the bubble necessarily? What do the Warriors have to play for right now?
Let's see. Are there any teams we haven't talked about? We haven't talked about Atlanta at all. Atlanta would.
They are very interesting if they can land one of the top picks. Although I think they're actually a sneaky destination to potentially flip that pick.
Yeah,
if they get, I'm not sure they want to keep the number 1 pick. They have a lot of young guys on that team as it is. They kind of need more of an established veteran presence to bring along Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, some of the young wings, Cam Reddish, DeAndre
Hmm.
Hunter, and company. I know they traded for Capella. He's going to be a great veteran presence for them in the middle and give them the rim running big that they need to complement Trae Young, especially
Hmm.
considering that Trae Young is one of the most horrific guard defenders we've ever seen in the history of the NBA.
Yeah, but he also has ice in his veins.
He's a big time shot maker. I'm not going to knock anything Trae does on offense. I had his evaluation wrong. If we want to talk about misses, draft misses by Nathan Grubel, that was one of them that I had him pegged as a backup point guard.
Yeah, you still counted him at that like even a few months ago. I'm glad you finally came around.
Well, that's not an unrealistic outcome. That could still happen, depending on how bad his defense is. I know he's
I
an all
mean,
star.
Ray Allen was technically a backup at some point, right? He's still a future.
Well, eventually everybody becomes a backup.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe
But
like 10 years down the line, he's a backup.
is Trae Young like the first, second, or third best player on a championship team? I don't know. I don't
Oh, he
have the
definitely
answer
is.
to that question
Definitely
yet.
is. I'm fully committed to that.
That is a very high line of thinking that would be shared by our good friend Scott. He would absolutely share in that line of thinking.
So the Cheeseburger's talking about how he thinks the Hawks will trade down, which I could see happening. Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
I agree. He's buying into what we just said. I think they need another veteran. I don't think they need another young guy.
Yo, there's a perfect veteran out there right now. Free agent.
I'm
Instant
scared
start
to
on
hear
your
this
team.
one.
His name is Nick Young.
We're gonna avoid the Nick Young conversation.
Can I get a Nick Young counter in chat, please? We're on 2.
We're not gonna do this. we're just not gonna do this.
One of these days, I'll get you to talk about Nick Young. Imagine if he actually gets signed somewhere. You would never hear the end of it.
Eventually, he might.
I'm actually
And I
surprised
probably
that
would never hear the end of it.
Nick Young didn't get picked up for the bubble. There are a few teams who really could have used him. Like he would have been better than basically everybody on the Washington team, right?
Kevin, we're just not going there. Just not going there. I think the team that's probably not going to get any mention, two of the teams, are Charlotte and Detroit.
Yeah.
Detroit desperately needs somebody like LaMelo Ball. They desperately need a star at that point guard spot. Derrick Rose is not going to stay in Detroit. Spoiler alert for any Pistons fans. He's going to end up on a contender. I think he's a sneaky good candidate to end up on the Lakers at some point soon. And then Charlotte kind of just needs help everywhere. They have some interesting young guards, especially Devontae Graham, who was one of the most improved players in the NBA this past year. PJ Washington's an interesting forward. Miles Bridges is still growing into a lot of his role on both ends. They probably need a big for the future more than anything. Like they're a really good Wiseman or Okongwu destination.
Hmm.
Even possibly Obi Toppin. I know Michael Jordan absolutely loves drafting his performing college seniors for better or worse. We'll put that way. So that might be a sneaky good destination to find Obi Toppin.
Charlotte's really a team that just should be better than they are. Like I feel like they've been pretty irrelevant for a long time. It's kind of
So
sad.
Borrego's actually a decent coach. I really like their head coach. He was a young candidate for them who certainly has paid his dues working in the NBA on multiple different benches. And now that they've given him a shot, I'm glad to see some of these teams give some of these hardworking assistant coaches shots. Taylor Jenkins in Memphis was probably the best well-known one from this past season who had great success in a role like that. And I think more young coaches are going to find their way into better jobs as we move through the years here. One coaching spot that will not be occupied by a young gun, I can promise you if it opens up, is Philly. They will go for a big name, and a big name will take that job. Maybe we should avoid Philly. I don't know if I want to talk about Philly.
Yeah, you'll get too heated.
I will probably get too heated. I might scare off some people in the chat. I've seen some people in and out already. I don't think they're ready for a Philly take.
If it's any consolation, I predicted them to get swept.
If the Bulls get 6 again, I'm going to be mad.
I don't blame you.
I would be mad too. Well, not necessarily. This draft is actually a little deeper than people think. So I think it's time. I probably go through some of my big board here, some more of my big board. So we've already mentioned some of the guys at the top. Cole Anthony, I have number 1. LaMelo Ball, I have number 2. Anthony Edwards, I have 3rd. James Wiseman, 4th. And Denny Avdia, who a lot of scouts are talking about as a riser right now, actually. I think he's solidified himself in the top 5. Jonathan Wasserman just put out a good article today over on Bleacher Report stating such. And I think if any scout doesn't have him in the top 5, they're flat out fooling themselves. I think his high end is potentially a better version of Danilo Gallinari, which we're seeing here in these first 2 games in the playoffs for Oklahoma City. He's been one of their most important offensive pieces, really keeping them afloat in games as much as they can be. So you take that for what it's worth. I think a lot of teams would be ecstatic if they were able to draft somebody in the mold of a Danilo Gallinari here. 6, we already talked about Okongwu. 7, I have Killian Hayes, the international point guard coming out here. 8, I have RJ Hampton, a name who is actually slipping on a lot of scouts' boards, whether that's in the media or kind of rumblings that you're hearing from professional teams, similar to Cole Anthony. Both those guys are actually slipping out of the lottery for some people here. 9, I have Tyrese Halliburton, guard out of Iowa State, and to close out the top 10, I have Devin Vassell coming out of Florida State. I think he's going to be a really intriguing 3-and-D wing prospect. Some guys I have just outside the top 10 that other people would classify as top 10 picks. I have Isaac Okoro right there at number 11. I don't think he does enough offensively for me to warrant a top 10 pick. I understand he could be great defensively. The same kind of disruptive presence similar to what Mikal Bridges has done for the Phoenix Suns. And you saw a lot of that in the bubble. He could be on an all-defensive team next year if he gets the minutes for it. But offensively, I think he has a ways to go. Bridges was much better than Okoro offensively in college, showed a lot more polish and poise. Being able to be under Jay Wright for more than just 1 year in Villanova, I think that really helped his polish and him coming into the NBA, being able to hit shots. Obi Toppin, we kind of talked about him a little bit. He's an explosive forward prospect. His future, I think, kind of has to be at the center spot, as long as he can get better defensively, act as more of a rim protector. I think if he has to switch and guard on the perimeter and really be caught in a lot of pick and roll situations, I think that's going to be devastating for his team defensively. He's just not somebody you want defending out in space. 13, I have Jaden McDaniels. Very, very, very underrated potential forward prospect. He has fallen into the late first round on so many media boards that I've seen. It's unwarranted. I understand when it looks bad, but when he's on, I mean, we're seeing what Michael Porter Jr. is doing for the Denver Nuggets. He's that same kind of 6'10", rangy scorer who can certainly get his shot off over anyone, is a developing ball handler, quietly an excellent defensive playmaker. Not necessarily a ball stopper, but a playmaker in space, long arms, allows him to get into those passing lanes, cut things off. Incredible weak side shot blocker. Very underrated in that aspect of his game. And I like the two-way package that he can bring to the table. He's going to need to definitely mature, come in, want to work hard, want to work behind and learn from some veterans, because he's not going to start probably his first year in the league. For sure, he's going to spend some time in the G League, but to a team that's patient and wants to develop him, he is such an underrated prospect coming out of Washington. And then 14, rounding out the lottery portion of my big board, I have Precious Achiuwa. Not as polished offensively, but defensively about as versatile and as surefire of a weapon as you can find in this draft. He can guard 1 through 5. Certainly a ridiculous post presence to be able to lean on, switching on the bigs, holding his own, blocking shots. Freak athlete, loves to run the floor. I think he's an incredibly underrated value pick at 14 if he falls there. And that's kind of what my lottery is looking like. Kevin, I know you're not a big scout, but as we're listening to Mark Tatum here give us some of the teams revealed here, any thoughts on the names I gave out?
I mean, it makes sense to me. I just want to, before the lottery starts quick, I just want to go over a few questions in chat. I know my finals pick is I have Toronto versus the Lakers. You're, what are you at again? You're Lakers against Milwaukee?
I'm Lakers Toronto.
You're Lakers Toronto too?
Gun to my head, I can't go against the Raptors at this point. They're way too polished, well too prepared as a team.
Well, Boston got 14.
Pelicans falling in line at 13. Draft staying hold right now.
Let me go ahead and add a little bit of context to our draft order on the screen. I think another question in chat was who do you think the Cavs' first pick should be if they get the number 1?
If the Cavs get number 1,
yeah,
I think they're going to go after a big, even though they have Andre Drummond still under contract for this upcoming year. I think they'll still go after Wiseman. But if I were the GM of the Cavs, I would look long and hard at Denny Avdia. I think he would be a great fit at the 4 long term. If you have your wings / forwards are Kevin Porter Jr. and Denny Avdia, I think you'd be rounding out your rotation incredibly well for the future.
Makes sense. It looks like it's going about par for course so far.
A double jump into the top 4. That is devastating for the Knicks. I'm not going to lie, that's devastating.
Definitely not an ideal situation.
Here we go, an organization like Charlotte jumping up. Another small town organization making a jump. So this new lottery system is certainly proving well for small market teams. I like seeing that.
ATL with a number 6. Oh, wow. Cavs at 5.
So this is going to get really interesting.
Okay, we have it all updated on our screen now as well, for anybody following along. How do you think that played out then? How you feeling about that, Nate?
Well, I do like that some of those other teams jumped up, especially Charlotte. I think that gives them an interesting piece to play with, whether they do want to draft another young player or potentially flip that pick. If they get the number 1 overall pick, I really hope that they would go with a young guy if they keep it, not necessarily draft somebody like Obi Toppin. I don't think that's enough value at the top. But Chicago, Golden State, Minnesota, those are some interesting markets for LaMelo Ball to end up in. Not going to lie.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I think we had another question or two. Oh, we had somebody say that would be nice to get Minnesota, or if Minnesota got number 1. And how do you feel about Khalil Whitney? Somebody mentioned him in chat.
I don't think Khalil Whitney's going to be drafted, to be
Really?
honest. He's not going to make my top 60. So if we have some Khalil Whitney fans out there, I apologize. I don't think he's going to be drafted. Interesting athlete. He never quite cracked the rotation at Kentucky. He never really got to show a skill set. So could he end up in the league still undrafted? Absolutely. He's going to be worth somebody taking a flyer. But I don't see him being drafted. Not this year.
Good that. It's actually crazy how, like, I remember Kentucky growing up was always like that team that you knew was always going to be like up there. It's crazy how they're so just inconsistent now with like turning out draft prospects.
Well, I mean that's just the nature of the beast, right? That's what happens when you rely on one and done guys. You bring in all these young players who are potential top picks in their own right. They have to mesh together, play one unified style in college, get along with each other. More so than any other team that has veteran experience, guys who have played together for years. It's hard to ask that of a lot of young players. And then you factor into the college game is so much different than the pro game. So you have a lot of guys wanting to come in and showcase what they can do from a professional standpoint, what they could show on an NBA floor, yet the limitations of the college game, that doesn't always allow for that to be a nice, neat, and tidy process. So there's a lot to unpack with one-and-done programs that they turn into, like Kentucky and Duke. But Coach Cal does a great job with what he has. One of the best defensive coaches in college basketball, always gets the most out of his guys. Shout out to Coach Cal in Kentucky. You guys always do it every year. I love you, Coach Cal.
How does Chad feel about the first little bit of the lottery? Any disappointment? Any happiness? How are you feeling? Oh, we actually have another question.
I really
too.
wanted a Knicks fan to just absolutely swear and rattle off nonstop swear words in the chat. But That has not happened. So.
Are there any Knicks fans still? I don't know if they exist anymore, to be honest with you. I think they've all given up. Nike HDS question for you. Do you think LaMelo and Russell would be a good supporting one another, like in the backcourt? I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. You don't think they'd be a good fit, right?
I think offensively they'd be an interesting fit together, but defensively it's not a match. D'Angelo is probably not going to turn into a top flight defender. And LaMelo, while he has excellent positional size, no matter which backcourt spot he'd be playing at technically, whether he's guarding a 1 or a 2, his off-ball defense absolutely has to get better at this point for him to succeed on that end. Too many possessions, he either takes plays off, or some team that is running a more intricate scheme who knows how to backdoor you like crazy and target you, similar to what we've seen in the playoffs. Those were a lot of the problems that Michael Porter Jr. has come in and had with the Denver Nuggets. And you see Quinn Snyder in Utah just going after him nonstop. And he's had to be pulled from the game at times. And I think that same fate could happen to LaMelo if he doesn't have a solid defensive backcourt partner.
You finally got some people complaining about the Knicks pick, Nate. You ask and you shall receive.
I literally asked and I received. Mike Yak, special shout out to you, my friend. You gave me what I wanted. I did call you out, and I'm glad I called you out because that's the response that we wanted.
I imagine they're incredibly disappointed. Oh, we got number 4 coming up?
Chicago.
That feels bad.
The Charlotte Hornets. Okay, so
will
they give it to Golden State?
That would be so sad.
Wow, Minnesota with the number 1 overall pick. My goodness. I personally think this has put Anthony Edwards at number 1. I think that's where Minnesota's probably going to go.
You think he'd fit the team the best?
Has an interesting decision to make from 2 on. I mean, if I'm Minnesota and they keep the pick, I'm actually kind of excited for Anthony Edwards to go into that situation. I think he'd be a solid backcourt mate for D'Angelo. The ball would be out of Anthony Edwards' hands. He'd be allowed to catch and shoot, an area of his game I think he has to work on. But I think given his mechanics and his touch elsewhere, I think he's going to get there as a catch and shoot threat. And then, I mean, even when he has the ball in his hands, he has a guy in D'Angelo who is a catch and shooter who, if he needs to make a quick decision, get him the ball back. I mean, they could play a really interesting 2-man game on the perimeter. And then you have Towns, who is also a dangerous shooting threat in his own right. So we're talking about a Minnesota Timberwolves squad that could spread the floor and absolutely kill opponents from the 3-point line in the future. So I actually don't think that would be the worst thing. Again, Anthony Edwards, also another guy who has to work on his defense, especially off the ball. He really needs to remain engaged in a lot of situations. I think over time he'll become better. I think his one-on-one defense is something that could actually give him a leg up coming into the league because of his strong frame, his bruising body. He's not going to get overmatched physically by a lot of guys at his position. But it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that pick and then moving down the list here. Chat, anybody else you want me to talk about?
I got 2 things. We got Flat saying that he doesn't think they'll go with Anthony Edwards. He thinks they're going to trade. And then we got another Knicks fan talking about the NBA conspiracy. That's what I kind of like to see.
Keep the Knicks down. I love it. I love the conspiracy theory. Nobody was saying that when they got Patrick Ewing, but we can say it now.
Do you feel like since Golden State got number 2, like they're just set up to get LaMelo now? It's just gonna happen.
No, I don't think it's a sure thing. I think they're another team that would be happy to have James Wiseman. I think James Wiseman would be a good fit long-term in Golden State. He wouldn't be asked to be too much right out of the gate. He could be the rim runner that everybody kind of thinks he's going to be in his first year in the league. And he's working with vets, great coaches in practice, in training camps. He's going to be able to develop his game in those situations and be able to, in a few years' time, show off more of what he could do. I think the high end comparison to Chris Bosh is absolutely apt. If anyone was watching the Jump this week when Rachel Nichols and some of the guys interviewed him on live TV, he actually gave that comparison himself, that he really likes to watch and model a lot of his game after Chris Bosh, and I don't think it's out of the realm of what can happen here. So I actually think what Jay Billis has on TV right now is best available players. That's not my ranking. If anyone who's been listening to the live stream, listening to any of the Draft Deeper podcasts, they know that that's not my top three. But I absolutely think that's a likely outcome as long as the picks stay in place.
All right, Nate. Two things. One, let's transition to the Bulls a little bit. We had a question about it in chat about what we think they're going to go. And I just want to shout out Matthew Haig, Nate Shot, shout out Hunter Thieves. He was just tweeting about how he wants LaMelo to fall to number 4 so badly to the Bulls. If there's one person who loves the Ball family more than I do, it is Matthew Haig, Nate Shot. That man loves Lonzo.
I mean, I would love to see him in a Bulls uniform too. I think that's definitely one way that Zach LaVine can definitely stay with the Bulls, is I think him and LaMelo being able to coexist, share ball handling opportunities, but letting LaMelo do what he does best and be the quarterback of the offense while leaving a lot of the shot making duties to Zach LaVine. I think that's a great pairing that could work. I think I saw a question: who's going to be the biggest bust in the draft, from Slats? That's a great question. In terms of just pure busts, guys who I don't see living up to their full potential, I think Patrick Williams coming out of Florida State. I really like him. If we're really breaking into spoiler territory, I have him at 17 on my big board. He's creeping into the top 10 of a lot of other media scouts, and even some rumblings you're hearing out of the league. He's creeping into the top 10 of a lot of boards. I don't see him as a top 10 guy right now. He's far too raw offensively. I see the appeal. He's a freakish athlete. Certainly could end up being able to guard 1 through 4 in the NBA. But if he sees himself as a wing, he has a lot of work to do with that handle and that jump shot to be able to play that. I think he's a small ball 4 right now. And I don't even think he's going to get a lot of time to shine in his rookie year. He's going to be another guy that probably ends up spending a lot of minutes in the G League developing into the kind of player he could become. So if you're going to ask me, a guy who's had a lot of buzz right now, who I could see having some bust potential, that's probably my name at this current moment in time. But I think everybody else we've talked about, everybody else we've mentioned, I think they're going to be able to play to their roles, and that's what this draft is. It's a lot of role players. It's a lot of prospects who are going to need time to develop, even the top picks. Everybody be patient. We're not going to have a clear-cut rookie of the year next year, I don't think, like John Morant or even Zion Williamson, if he probably would have played the whole season, definitely been in shape the whole season. I think expectations have to be tempered a little bit for this group.
We got somebody saying James Wiseman is going to be the biggest bust. How do you feel about that?
Mike, you earned my support, man, with the Knicks talk. I don't know if you're earning my support with the James Wiseman bust call, but I don't see him busting. I think he's another guy that some other scouts would peg as somebody who might not fully live up to their potential if he's only a rim running big on offense who can do a few things defensively, protect the rim. But I think there's more to unpack offensively. I like his developing handle. I like his standstill jump shot. I think he's going to extend that range, be a factor from 3. I pretty much like everything that he's bringing to the table and could bring to the table in the future from a skills package. So I'm not with you that he's going to be the bust of the draft class.
I also feel like the bust of this draft class isn't going to be as meaningful as other years, because there's nobody who's like coming in as like oh, you're going to be an all-star right away. Oh, you're going to be a leader on a championship team. You don't have that this year, right? And that's what you've been talking about in a few podcasts.
No, we don't necessarily have that. I don't see anybody in this particular draft class who screams superstar talent. Now, I have Cole Anthony number 1 on my board. For anybody who just joined the stream, who hasn't been following along the whole time here, when I read off some of my lottery talents on my big board here, I have him number 1 because I see his upside, his absolute ceiling. Not saying he's going to be this guy, but his absolute ceiling is a Damian Lillard type player in the NBA. A guard who can get his own shot from anywhere on the floor, fearless, competitive as can be, if not the biggest competitor in this draft class, up there with anybody else. He's fearless. He comes from a professional background with his father being Greg Anthony. You know he's going to come in the league prepared. He's going to have the right mindset. He's going to work his ass off. He's going to do everything he possibly can to succeed. And a lot of people point to, well, he didn't do well in college. He scored 18.5 points a game at North Carolina. If you're telling me that that's the production that he put up with the talent level he had around them at that school, who else are we going to be talking about in a draft class from that team that Roy Williams just had this year? Leaky Black, Armando Bacot. I don't see any other draft prospects of note, period, on that team other than what Cole was last year. So not surrounded by NBA talent. Certainly asked to play a lot of top teams in the ACC like Duke and carry that squad as much as he possibly could. Take a look at some of the synergy numbers in isolation situations, in certain spots on the floor, being able to pull up from anywhere. His percentages in isolations ranked among the best of anybody else in the country. So I think he's a great one-on-one scorer at the guard spot. I think he's going to be able to handle his responsibilities distributing the basketball when he has better talent around him, better talent he can trust. I don't see him busting. All this notion that he's going to fall outside of the lottery, that he should fall outside of the lottery, forget where I have him. That's absolutely bogus. It's completely unfair to Cole, and I think he's going to come out next year and really surprise a lot of people who have doubted him.
Do you want to answer this last question, then we'll call it a night, Nate?
Yes.
Who do you feel like is the biggest sleeper of the draft, if you had to pick one?
Am I allowed to say Cole?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say Cole now for biggest sleeper because he's not even a lottery pick right now on pretty much almost any board you want to look up on the internet from a reputable quote unquote media scout? I think I'm going to say Cole. He's going to shock the world, period.
I'd love to see it. All right, guys. This is where we're going to end it for the night. Thank you for tuning into our lottery show. If you guys are new here, feel free to follow us on Twitter at DraftDeeper. Feel free to follow us on YouTube, Draft Deeper, Facebook, Draft Deeper. The links are all in the description, and they're up in the top of the screen up there. This will go live about maybe noon tomorrow, if you guys want to listen back into it. Do you have anything else to say, Nate?
I just want to thank everyone who came out to the stream tonight. This is a project, this is a platform that I've really taken some thought and a lot of time and preparation in putting together. I'm incredibly excited for where we can go in the future here. Obviously, Kevin mentioned all the social media links. The podcast is a great form of media that we're putting out right now that allows me to go a little more in depth with you guys than just a normal written article that you might find on Bleacher Report or The Ringer or anywhere else. It's a great platform and a great tool for me to be able to use. Next week, I will be doing another solo pod going through 6 through 10, as we mentioned on the big board, a lot more in depth. And in the future here, stay tuned to a lot of the social media platforms. Trust me, there's more coming. There's going to be videos coming in terms of segments from the pod, some little breakdown stuff that I want to do here and there. The website that we are going to launch, hopefully not too long after Labor Day here coming up, is going to be an incredible place for content in terms of detailed profiles on pretty much anyone you would want to know about in the draft period. And that's going to be a site where we build on big boards rankings, do some NBA coverage in the future here. So there's a lot coming for Draft Deeper. I'm incredibly excited. If you guys have any questions, you can absolutely email in draftdeeper@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to go through some questions, maybe in a segment on some of the pods coming up or another live stream. But I don't know when our next live stream is definitely going to be, but certainly we will do a full show for the NBA draft itself in October. That I can promise you. So thank you so much, Kevin, for helping me put this together. I appreciate it. To everyone tuning in tonight, thank you again so much for your support. Have a great week, everybody.
Have a good night, guys.